Hi everyone, today is finally the day. This is my in-depth thoughts and sort of a review of Disney Pixar's Inside Out 2. I have rewatched Inside Out 1 again and I've watched Inside Out 2 twice in theaters, including the 35-minute teaser I saw before the theatrical release. I made a video about my experience being able to see the first 35 minutes of the movie. I said that I would think this movie would be good. I was right that this would be Pixar cooking, and I think I was more surprised at how good it is, even more than I expected. I'll first dive into Inside Out 1, then I'll go into Inside Out 2. Firstly, I do recommend you have watched both movies, and I'll from this point forward go into spoiler territory. I will be putting my ratings for Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2 in the description if you don't want to see spoilers. One last disclaimer, I will be playing some Disney Speedstorm in the background because of the Inside Out content in this game. I do not recommend actually playing this game because this game has a lot of bad, greedy microtransactions. I don't want my subscribers or followers to experience the pain and suffering that this game is. Let's get into the video. I'm still learning how to speak of the script, so my voice at all won't be perfect in this video, but yeah. The A-plot of Inside Out 1 is the emotions and their conflicts, issues, and hurdles. This includes a fight between joy and sadness, the multiple islands falling apart, Bing Bong, and joy and sadness getting compressed in abstract thought. The B-plot of Inside Out 1 is San Francisco and the ramifications that are included with that. The issue at play with this are the need to change schools, losing the cold/snow, and leaving your childhood home. The C-plot of Inside Out 1 is the family arc. The family isn't the ultimate part of the story, but they do guide the story majorly. The family chose to move to San Francisco and ultimately guide Riley through the tough job of moving homes. The family island falling is also the ultimate drive towards Riley attempting to leave San Francisco. The character change in Inside Out 1 is Joy learning to not control emotions as much and allowing a balance between joy and sadness. The reason I'm breaking down the story parts is to get a fuller picture of the plot of both movies as sort of a refresher or foundation for my future thoughts. Most of the dynamics of the first movie are sadness and joy being in the back of the mind, and the switch from Minnesota to San Francisco. In total, I enjoyed Inside Out 1, but I'll expand on my thoughts of Inside Out 1 later. Let's get into Inside Out 2. The A-plot of Inside Out 2 is about the emotions and how they try to control Riley. This is kinda similar to before with Inside Out 1, but the stakes are raised since anxiety wants to rule Riley, while in Inside Out 1, fear, disgust, and anger don't really want to be left without joy or sadness. The B-plot of Inside Out 2 is the journey to join the Firehawks. Riley's journey to joining the Firehawks is a source of conflict, as she temporarily is in the Firehawks friend circle and leaves behind her old friend circle. Eventually, she apologizes to them, and in the end, it is a cliffhanger if she makes it onto the Firehawks team. The C-plot of Inside Out 2 is the friends. The story of Riley trying to make more long-lasting friends for high school has a lot of conflict, since she has to make some sacrifices with her middle school friends to be able to make some new high school friends. There was some story with the family too, but I think the main C-plot is a friendship this time around because the friends had a lot of the story and scenes. The character change in Inside Out 2 is mainly joy and anxiety, although most of them do change slightly. Anxiety and Joy learn they can't control Riley's future. The rest of the emotions wondered why Joy broke off the I'm a good person belief system, because Riley needs to criticize herself in some ways to actually be a good person. Self-criticism is good for adjusting yourself to be a more kind and better person. The other emotions eventually realize how having all those mixed emotions makes it so she has more nuanced beliefs. So basically all these emotions had some type of character change because they realized Riley with these new beliefs didn't just hate herself, she hated herself and liked herself. And that's a good way to make self-criticism a thing. So putting it in perspective, the A-plot in both movies is the emotions. While Inside Out 1 is more about family, while Inside Out 2 is more focused on friend dynamics. Inside Out 1 covers moving to a new house and family, while Inside Out 2 covers puberty and gaining friends. Since I now laid out the groundwork, let's finally get more in depth on Inside Out 2. Let's get into more things now. I'll kind of do it in order, but a lot of these things I'll be talking about will be put together into one point. At the start of Inside Out 2, it is set in a world with a more grown-up and a little bit more professional version of Riley playing hockey compared to Inside Out 1. I like to start being this joyful, positive, energetic continuation of the franchise. The emotions get quickly reintroduced in this fast-paced way, and when Riley has to sit out away from the hockey game for being too aggressive, we see what Riley did from Inside Out 1 to Inside Out 2. I like this hockey game introduction because it shows what happened between Inside Out 1 and Inside Out 2. It also brings back the emotions in this fun, quirky Pixar-like way, and it fits with the Inside Out universe too, which is cool. Joy in the start tosses the bad memories in the back of the mind and only keeps positive ones. This kind of shows how Joy either regressed from the first movie or Joy still needs a bit more experience to fully let go of controlling things with Riley. We see this even when puberty strikes, where Joy tries to toss the puberty out of the back of her mind and not have to worry about it. Also, I love the design of the emotions when they get awoken early by the alarm. We see the fluffy bed hair of all the sleepy emotions that also have their own colored beds in this scene as well. The question with this is, do emotions need to sleep? And what happens if there's an emotion that sleeps during the day, or an emotion that has a bad sleep schedule? At the end of Inside Out 1, the family island is big, but as we start Inside Out 2, the family island is tiny and the friendship island is massive. People that are in their teens often value friendship and a group to fit in with, because it's easier to get through the school day when you have friends that make the school less boring, because schools usually are boring and not that fun to be in. The love of family dwindles because the effort going to friends is much more. And that initial joy from family goes down as teenagers get bored and don't want to have a stagnant life with their parents or family, being around them all the time. Inside Out 2 is very much based on puberty and all those massive changes that happen during then. Some of the puberty effects in this movie are a more age face, altered emotions, and changes in large-scale moods. After Riley wakes up and starts puberty, we see the emotions barely touch the console, yet Riley goes full power on the emotion. It's a funny scene, but it's also kinda true. Everyone's puberty is different, but weird emotional things happen with puberty a lot. The belief system works both as a tool to show how Riley is aging and having her own beliefs and ideas, but also can serve as a more stable version of the core memories from the first movie. The belief system is very hard-coded to Riley, and can dictate a lot of Riley, making it more of a reason that it needs to be balanced. In one scene, we see disgust make sense on Bree's face in the beginning, and then in the same scene we see Grace, quote-unquote, spill the tea, but it's fear actually spilling the tea on the console which makes Grace tell the truth. For disgust, looking and deciphering facial expressions is new, and shows more of what disgust does. Riley is getting older, and eventually decoding nonverbal expressions is something she'll definitely get good at. For the quote-unquote spilling the tea bit, there are a lot more pun things in this movie than in the last. On one hand, I love them for being silly and containing the bit, but on the other hand, I think we didn't need so many. I was almost overloaded with the puns in this movie. We have train of thought in Inside Out 1, but in Inside Out 2, we have stream of consciousness, which is an actual water stream, sarcasm as an actual chasm, brainstorm, which is an actual storm, bottling up emotions, which is an actual bottle, rumor mill, which is an actual windmill, Mount Crushmore, which is a parody of Mount Rushmore, and the spilling the tea pun as well. Correct me if many Inside Out 1 puns flew over my head, but I feel like Inside Out 2 is way more packed with puns than Inside Out 1. Sarcasm is actually pretty clever because it takes the audio from one side of the chasm and makes it sarcastic for the other side of the chasm. And that kind of plays along with the sarcasm theme, I guess. And so that's like a really good use of a pun right there. Spilling the tea was a very clever one and a subtle pun too, in my opinion. I really like Brainstorm too. I think that's an amazing one as well, but I feel like the other ones, I don't know if they're that interesting or good. Stream of Consciousness was alright and does make sense, but that pun didn't really blow me away either. So I like the slow takeover of anxiety. I wish it was a tiny bit longer, but I did like how Joy gave criticism towards anxiety in the beginning. Joy said things like, "You're laying it on a bit thick," and this foreshadows how anxiety needs to take it calmer. Anxiety basically came in leading even when Joy usually leads, which led it to be really interesting. And since Joy and anxiety were fighting, this led to a fight and the emotions getting bottled up in the process as well. Before they get in the bottle, Anger also says something like, "You won't go down there over my dead flaming body." But when he gets picked up by embarrassment, he stops becoming flaming and he didn't also try to use his fire with the bottle, which seems like a little bit of a plot hole. So in Inside Out 1, we had Anger melting the HQ glass, you had joy and sadness inside the HQ. My question is, why can't he burn the ball glass this time? It feels weird that he apparently can't do it this time. The vault is kinda interesting. In the first Inside Out, Bing Bong and Jingles the Clown get taken into a vault that stores Riley's deepest fears. In the second Inside Out, it's now Riley's deepest secrets. The vault is interesting as Bluefy, Pouchy, and Lance might show up again in Riley's mind, but it really depends. We also have the Deep Dark Secret character, which feels very weird since it's already a vault that hides secrets. It's a little overkill for a character named Deep Dark Secret to be in a vault for secrets. I'll later go over the reveal of this at the end. Lance feels alright as a movie equivalent of video game characters with awkward movement and unbalanced abilities. These video game things being put into movies right now are only really referencing Nintendo, Sonic, Pac-Man, or other basic games that have been around for a long time. They use these broad symbols of gaming instead of going deep and maybe referencing Call of Duty, Minecraft, or some other not service level game. I like the Smash Bros. Ultimate reference, but again, this is a Nintendo property they're using. We had the Sonic movies, we had Detective Pikachu, and the Super Mario movie. I'm just a little bit burnt out of this basic gaming representation that's in movies right now, and hope for something just a bit more. His art style is cool, but again, no matter how good it is, I'm still hoping for more in movies. I also am very happy that Lance is only a small side character and doesn't come back after the vault scene. I really don't think I could stand him being a part of the greater story of the movie. In Inside Out 2 as well, we get to connect with our old 5 original emotions more. Previously, I talked about disgust, and that part showed more of what disgust does. Sadness in Inside Out 2 goes to the headquarters. With sadness, she does have more directive in this movie. She may be sad, but she is not drowned in sadness to the same extent as in Inside Out 1. In this movie, she pairs with embarrassment, and it's kind of like a stealth spy thing where it's like kind of some Metal Gear Solid type game or something. Also, I bet if you're an extreme introvert, you would love the scene where they scare each other and make like some like weird silent trust thing. We had Joy beating down my anger, fear, and disgust. Even Joy was suppressing emotions to help Riley. It made a really remarkable scene in my opinion about Joy being delusional because of all the effort she puts in to help Riley and beat her actual emotion. Anger was calm and happy at some points too. And even before he announced he was pretty calm and at that one point in the movie, I saw that anger was shocked in a lot of cases as well, and shocked more in cases than being angry. Even disgust has been smiling and being happy, way more than I remember in the first movie. So Sadness gets inside the HQ with a walkie-talkie, while the others stay on the ground to get the old belief system. Disgust, fear, and anger eventually get to the imagination sector of the brain. They go inside and it's anxiety on a massive screen telling a whole room of workers what to draw and what to make Riley imagine. This is such clearly a George Orwell 1984 reference and a reference to that 1984 Apple commercial. I do enjoy it. After a really cheesy Fortnite version of 1984, I'm more than happy that they're using this as an allegory to say that anxiety is kind of controlling like a dictator. I feel like Fortnite kind of ruined the 1984 thing, so I'm happy that they have this version in this movie that's actually pretty good and a good way of describing anxiety. Anxiety in Inside Out 2 is like a dictator. She and the other new emotions do a coup and take power from the old emotions and rule over Riley. Overall, I like this as sorta a story about dictatorship and corruption. I don't know how many Disney Pixar movies do this story, but it feels pretty unique for Disney Pixar. For the other new emotions, embarrassment works so well as a character and also does well at being a counterpart of sadness. Anxiety is Joy's counterpart as well. Envy is disgust's counterpart. For Envy, I don't think she really stacks up to the level as the other old emotions that are, I think, more thought through, more thought out. Embarrassment and boredom don't really do too much. And I think Envy is kind of just there to have a second, more vocal emotion. A character there to be more active. Because embarrassment and boredom aren't really active. They're kind of just laid back. Embarrassment's more scared to talk, I guess, or embarrassed, you know? Envy and boredom in Inside Out 2 also have the same issue of not doing too much emotionally. They do activate their emotions a bit, but still isn't the amount that I would expect since they basically scrapped the old emotions and took over. Envy had the arc of the red hair dye and wanting that. Boredom had the whole sarcasm arc at the party with the Firehawks. I just would think that boredom would make Riley bored and more sleepy, and maybe that could have paired with Riley being bored scrolling through social media and being envious of other people on social media. We did get some scenes where Riley was like on Skype or something, or Zoom, I don't know what it was, but was on some sort of FaceTime thing or something. This movie is set in either the 2010s or the 2020s, why don't we have social media as a key factor? Why don't we have, they have posts in there because at the end there's Riley joining the Firehawks as like a post, but like social media really is a part of emotion too. My video before Inside Out 2 released, I did say that maybe envy and boredom could play a factor with social media to leave Riley in the spot of scrolling on social media a lot, being envious of other people's accomplishments and what they put on social media, and also bored because you have things like doom scrolling where you're just scrolling because you are kind of bored and you're kind of stuck in this loop. Surprised they didn't put something like that in the movie because it is something that we're facing right now in the social media age. But overall, anxiety was the main person controlling Riley at this point. I guess it goes back to anxiety being on top, the dictator, the one controlling everything. But if you remove all the other emotions, then that should have more room for envy and boredom to really also take over in some way, which didn't really happen. Boredom in Inside Out 2 is more of the cool, sarcastic, or careless attitude than the emotion of boringness, which is probably why her name is also Ennui. I don't really get why we have this other name of boredom when the other characters don't really have this. Maybe ennui is more of a specific word of boredom, while boredom's maybe more of the umbrella term, I guess. I don't know. The name ennui I don't really hate, but I feel like it's not really included that much because maybe you can have another word for anger, another word for joy. The world of Inside Out is pretty cohesive because you have the different colors for all the different emotions. You have the different names of characters, like sadness is blue, and it's just really cohesive already. And I feel like having ennui and boredom be both names is a little bit different and a little bit less cohesive, at least for me. For Inside Out 1, we had Riley try to escape San Francisco on her own. This shut down the console until Sadness came in and fixed it. Inside Out 2's version of this is the gym coach's book, and in my opinion, it doesn't really have the same impact as the first movie's one. Leaving your family is quite a lot more dangerous than seeing what a teacher or gym coach has written for you. I feel like it's quite realistic for someone in high school to want to see what their coach has written for them, and it's something low stakes. It's not incredibly unrealistic. The first movie is a little more unrealistic because wanting to leave your family is a massive amount of mental instability to want to do something like that. So the first movie was quite unrealistic, but it really drove the conflict a lot. It made the conflict really strong. This movie's version of that is pretty realistic, but it really doesn't have the same level of conflict. Like, if Riley gets caught, maybe, I don't know, some detention or something, it's not gonna be a crazy big deal. Since the book says she isn't ready for the team yet, that does push anxiety into overdrive to try to do 3 goals. So maybe that's more of the setup for the climax, is that the conflict is Riley trying to push herself to be ready for the team by scoring 3 goals and having anxiety push her to do that. The brainstorm was interesting. I talked about it before, but the whole both sides of saying we need a bigger idea was kind of funny for me personally. And then Fear saying let's grab onto that idea was also kind of funny. The prospect of ideas being this big mass and massive thing is funny, since for us, an idea is just a way to make a plan or blueprint and doesn't actually signify any real physical thing. The way the emotions hang onto the glass is kind of like how the 5 emotions got in on Inside Out 1, where they were hanging on the ledge, but it didn't quite work this time. Sadness takes Ennui/Boredom's console and uses it to make Riley sad during the whole coach book encounter. Sadness gets found by Anxiety, and Anxiety hangs up Sadness in a bucket. Then later, Embarrassment gets Sadness out. Then Sadness sneaks up on the console to try to use the thing that stores bad memories in the back of the brain to recall it, so the 4 emotions can get back in the headquarters. Anxiety then broke the recall, and it leaves all the 4 emotions stranded. My thoughts on this are, if they didn't get rid of that recall thing, then people would be saying, why don't the 4 emotions use a recall to get back into HQ? But it's nice they addressed that, I guess. We see another scene that is emotional as the Joy delusion scene. That is Joy being sad about the state of what's going on. That is, at least for me, what I got out of that. These emotional scenes for me just hit so hard because they stuck the landing with most of the conflict, so the emotion comes, I guess, more naturally based on the events that are happening in the plot with the conflict. I'm not that emotional of a person, but I respect these emotional scenes a lot. Usually these emotional scenes are more forced, but with this, it actually makes some sense as to why there's emotions. Life does suck a lot as a teenager, and especially with those emotions flowing, it gets pretty bad. The way they get back to the HQ is by the TNT from Pouchy. They then blow up the land that the memory orbs are on, and then they ride the landslide back to the HQ. They eventually land inside the belief system's water pond, and the memory orbs come with them and populate the water and make it part of the belief system. Pouchy coming back is cool, and the scene of Anger pulling the TNT out of his mouth is enjoyable. Since we have a more childhood-like thing being used in more mature context, which is usually interesting and new, and is something you don't really see too often. If a story has a plot twist like this, the change doesn't feel as strong, which is what happens here. But I'm 1,000 times more happy they brought back Pouchy instead of bringing back the Lance character for this. The water from the belief system is used as a way for the suppressed or lost emotions to be able to come back to the headquarters, instead of being forgotten in the pit like almost what happened in the first movie. This also helps be a metaphor that bottling emotions eventually leads to those emotions coming back stronger. Anxiety does her tornado storm, we'll get back to that later by the way, while Riley does an anxiety attack. The other emotions come up at the same time as the others are trying to pull back the anxiety belief system. With all 8 of them, the anxiety belief system comes off. Joy puts her own "I'm a good person" belief system instead. Then Joy goes up to Anxiety saying she can't control Riley. Anxiety then cries and calms down. Then Joy reflects and realizes more that she is the one that also is controlling Riley with the "I'm a good person" belief system. She rips it out and lets it regrow with all the other emotions influencing it, and it makes Riley have more complex beliefs. We already covered this in the start, but this is a strong ending, both the villain and the hero being in the wrong on different levels and amounts. This movie is just really good at signifying that it's not just one person to blame, Joy was also being controlling. Anxiety was too, but Joy was as well, so they were both wrong in some tiny amount. Anxiety in this last hockey game worries about getting 3 goals, being the best, and being the quickest to be able to join the Firehawks. This is Anxiety and Riley an anxiety attack when Riley plays too hard and accidentally hits her old friend Grace. Riley had to sit down in timeout for 2 more minutes, and that made Riley spiral even more into an anxiety attack. This part has so many cool effects. Joy's "I'm a good person" belief system is this basic round blue ball thing, while Anxiety's "I'm not good enough" belief system is this complex, non-symmetrical orange lightning ball. In the anxiety attack scene, Anxiety goes tornado mode, trying to go fast and use all the buttons on the control console to control Riley. This orange tornado gets so crazy and cool looking, especially when it's expanding. Then when Joy steps into the tornado to talk to Anxiety, we get this holographic non-physical version of Anxiety. It's like Schrodinger's Anxiety. She's there, but also not there too because she's moving so fast. I love the graphics of Anxiety so much, and it enhances the great plot, conflict, and emotional elements even more. This also makes Anxiety just more fleshed out as a character. She's this fast, energy-drinking orange lightning bolt of energy, basically. Anxiety really reminds me of Mountain Dew Livewire, for that orangeness and the lightning bolts and all that energy and all that stuff. This climax with Anxiety is one of the best. And this is a movie that does deserve all the massive praise and attention this movie has been getting. Then all the emotions come around the new belief system and hug it to calm Riley down. Though I'm not sure how good this is compared to the other 2 emotional moments in this movie. It works to wrap up the anxiety attack, but for me it doesn't have that raw impact the other 2 had, since this is that typical Disney end emotional moment. So Anxiety goes back and Riley summons Joy to play the rest of the hockey game. The way Pixar does this is a glowing path to joy, and Sadness says Riley wants you. I feel it's a bit too perfect for Sadness to know all that, but I guess it's all those manuals Sadness has read about the HQ that might have included that information about when Riley wants joy or the other emotions. This shows how Riley can influence the headquarters and how the headquarters can dictate Riley as well. I find this is an allegory to a lot of things. A big one is movies. While you can turn on and off shows or movies, they ultimately do influence you over the time you watch them, and that power comes from how much the media resonates with you. So basically, you have the power to turn on and off the movie, but if you resonate with anything the movie has, that movie can change you as well. Inside Out 2 does well at showing how emotions have a fair share of power, while Riley also has herself a lot of power. This also might be a teaser at Inside Out 3, and what other methods and interesting things we'll have in that. We get Anxiety getting her own chair, and some anxiety, as in like actual tea. I love this like the disgust face scene. These small bits of character put into the actual design of the HQ makes it more interesting. For the actual hockey game, when Anxiety is in control, everything in the hockey game moves frantically, harshly, and imprecise. When Joy is in control, the hockey game is perceived as collected, calm, slow, thoughtful, and almost like some sort of craft. It contrasts the two so much, and I respect that creative decision massively. Especially since in a lot of Inside Out 1, we had almost the same slow motion hockey games as well. In the film's final moments, we get a cliffhanger about the Firehawks, and since Riley was excited, I assume she joined the Firehawks or even more than that. So the emotional plot ends when the emotions hug the belief system, and the friends plot wraps when Riley confesses to her actions caused by anxiety. This email for the Firehawks team members is a cliffhanger that also appears that Riley made it onto the team. So it appears that Firehawks plot wraps up there, but they made it a cliffhanger so it's going to extend to the next movie and make it way easier for the next movie to be actually needed in some way, rather than just some weird extension that wasn't planned. After the credits, we see the deep dark secret, and it's that Riley burnt the rug. Maybe Pixar wanted to try irony with this and do like, let's make this deep dark secret and make it something small that Riley did. And that does for sure happen with kids sometimes. But yeah, I thought there'd be more with that deep dark secret. It could have been something about love or something else with Riley. I think that comes in Inside Out 3 more than Inside Out 2. But yeah, the Deep Dark Secret was kind of a letdown since it was hyped up a lot. In total, I love Anxiety's role in this movie a ton. She is a controlling dictator in the beginning and then later has a lot of human moments. It has some real weight behind it. She knows that she wants to make an impact and ensure Riley can have friends in high school. She only later realizes her mistake when the major event happens of an anxiety attack and the I'm not good enough belief system. Anxiety has the harshness of an antagonist, yet also perfectly balances it with a real reason to do what she did on top of that. It shows Anxiety's humanity, despite her ruthlessness at times. Some of the other new emotions are lacking in this movie, but Anxiety still has a fantastic plot. For Inside Out 1, I would have, before the release of Inside Out 2, gave it a 8 out of 10. But now I would say, firmly, Inside Out 1 is a 7 out of 10. For Inside Out 2, I give it a 9 out of 10. Inside Out 1 set it all up, but with the movie mostly being about joy and sadness trying to get back to the HQ, and the fact of this movie needing to do the heavy lifting to really explain the universe, I think the first movie is really good, but not really close at all to perfection. Inside Out 2 is both stronger on its plot with the emotions, but very strong with the plot of the Firehawks, and good with the Friends plot as well. Inside Out 1 walked so Inside Out 2 could run. It brought Inside Out to a whole nother level, expanding the franchise with making this new movie. Almost everything hits harder with Inside Out 2. On the other end, the new emotions other than anxiety and embarrassment are not as strong as the original emotions in my opinion. Inside Out 2 is not a perfect movie, but it is close to being one. Anyway, that's about it. That's my in-depth thoughts and review of Inside Out 2. I wrote all of this out, so this is most definitely my biggest ever script at 9 pages and around 500 words. Right now, I'm not really uploading every week, or even uploading consistently. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to make some new content that really pushes myself and do something new. And so this was a hard challenge, but I did get this video done, so yeah, I did it. In the future, I'll try to keep making better and better videos. But yeah, that's about it. Like if you like, dislike, subscribe if you want, and bye.